Hello, I'm Catherine Maguire. Welcome to the Soul Alchemist Podcast. Thank you to everyone who liked the podcast last week, subscribed, shared. It is amazing. It makes such difference. Otherwise, the podcast is invisible and people can't find it. So thank you. Thank you for your help. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being part of the team, and please keep up the good work because it really helps. I truly, in my heart of hearts, want this podcast to reach the people who need to hear it and who it will help and inspire. And I can't do that without your help. So thanks for being on board with that. I also have an invitation for you this week, which is this. If there's a topic you would like me to talk about on the podcast, please let me know. Please get in touch. Or if you have a question and you think, oh, I'd love to ask Catherine about such and such, ask me. And if I can, I'll turn it into a podcast for you. I say this to my clients all the time. No question is too small or too silly. So don't be afraid to ask, because often that question that you're afraid to ask it's a doorway into something really deep and profound and inspiring. So get in touch, let me know, and I will really be happy to make that into a podcast where we can all benefit from your question or benefit from your curiosity or your inquiry. Okay, today, dun, 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 we're talking about guilt. Please don't run away. Please don't turn off the podcast. I know the very mention of the word guilt often gives people a pain in their tummy, but I promise you, if you give me about 12 minutes, by the time we are finished, you will have a whole new understanding about guilt. And not only will you understand it, you will know how to release it, and you will feel empowered and connected to your success. So let's go with that. All right. So there's an actual structure for how guilt works in our lives. And to demonstrate it, I'm going to tell you a story and kind of overlay the structure onto it because I think that will make more sense. So back quite a while ago now, when I was a young 20 years old, I met this lovely man. He was tall, he was handsome, he smelled amazing, drove motorbike, and we started dating. And things progressed. And we ended up moving in together. And then we ended up buying a house together. And about 10 years into our relationship, we were in Paris one weekend and we were up at the top of the Eiffel Tower. And he turned around to me and he asked me to marry him. And in this, like in a nanosecond, my whole being said no. But my mouth said yes. So he was delighted. All the people who turned around to see what was going on were now delighted. And we went back to Ireland, told our families, and subsequently got married. And we had the fairy tale wedding. We got married in the castle. I had this beautiful ivory gown with gold brocade, this beautiful medieval style dress. I had this amazing, like claret red velvet cloak that stretched all the way to the ground. Fabulous. And it was fabulous until it wasn't fabulous, because very quickly after getting married, the cracks started to show. So we tried for a baby and we didn't get pregnant. And I was also going through this process where I'd really felt like I'd lost myself, not just because of the relationship, but in my work. And there was other things going on in my life. And I really was in a kind of burnout, depression place. And it was not a good time for me. It was not a good time for me. And it was not a good time in our relationship, in our couple. And 3 years after being married, our marriage fell apart. And I felt so guilty. So guilty. So, what is guilt? We all know the word, we all associate to something, but what is it? So, guilt is something that happened that made you feel really bad. And we take on the belief that whatever happened was all our fault, which gives rise to the belief that we're not good enough. But that's a surface level belief. Underneath that is the real belief, which is, I'm a bad person. And because we believe we're a bad person, we get into this guilt trap of sacrifice and punish ourselves, because we think if I sacrifice and punish myself enough, I'll pay off the guilt. And if I pay off the guilt, then I'll no longer feel bad. But that's not the way through guilt. So what does it look like when I say sacrifice and punishing yourself? What does that look like? It looks like different things for different people, or it can be a combination of these things. First thing is the hard worker. I'll work hard. If I work hard enough and hard enough and hard enough and keep going and strive and struggle and hustle, eventually I'll have success and I'll save myself and I'll save my family. I'll be good. If I'm good, if I'm the good mum, the good dad, the good brother, the good sister, the good friend, the good employee, the good citizen, then I won't feel bad. And the good, you're never going to feel good enough. And on the extreme level, we have people who kind of go into that realm of being pious. Okay. There's also, in that spectrum where people pleasing comes into, because people pleasing can be almost like, for me, a kind of a sanitized label. But usually underneath the people pleasing, the reason you're people pleasing is because you feel bad. You feel you're a bad person. So you have to people please so they will like you, so you feel good. It's guilt. And the other thing we do when we have guilt is we withdraw. We withdraw from life because being in life triggers us. We touch up against the edges of the things that make us feel guilty. So we withdraw. So you might withdraw from socializing. You might withdraw from your family. You might withdraw from your friends. You might withdraw all the way over to the other side of the globe to get away from the guilt feeling because you don't want to feel bad. But you can't withdraw from the feeling. It doesn't matter where you withdraw to, the feeling's always inside. So this is what it looked like in my case. We separated. And as part of our separation agreement, my husband decided he wanted to stay in the house. So he would buy me out of my share of the house. Now, as a good adult, a good responsible adult, you'd think I would have taken that hunk of cash, and it was a big hunk of cash, and buy another house, use it to buy another house. But that's not what I did. Why? Because I was feeling guilty. And because I was feeling guilty, I believed I was a bad person. And having this money only compounded the fact that I felt guilty. Now I felt guilty about having the money. Now he was taking on the mortgage. It was all my fault. All right. So what did I do? I worked really hard. I worked really, really hard to get rid of that money and prove I was a good person. So I gave it to friends who were in need. I gave it to charities. I sponsored up and coming artists by buying their paintings. And in the space of about, I'd say 18 months to 2 years, it was all gone. It was all gone. Not only was it all gone, I was also an extra $5,000 in debt. And I withdrew. I withdrew to the Midlands of Ireland, where I didn't know one living soul, where I'd never been. And with the greatest respect to the Midlands of Ireland, I don't even like it there, but I withdrew. So I didn't have to be near my family. I didn't have to be near my own life. I didn't have to be near my own friends and explain what happened. I didn't have to be anywhere where I might bump into my ex-husband. I withdrew. Okay. But guilt travels with you. You can't withdraw from guilt. You have to alchemize it. Guilt keeps you stuck in the past. It keeps you frozen. It stops you from taking the next step. It causes you to bury your gift because you're so guilty. You bury your gifts because I'm a bad person. I can't shine my gold. If I shine my gold and this bad thing has happened and I've done this bad thing, how dare I shine my gold? How dare I share my gifts? What will people think of me because I'm showing my gifts over here when this bad thing happened over there? Okay, that's guilt. That's the guilt trap. Okay, and can you feel it even as I'm talking about it? The energy's heavy. It's claustrophobic. It's like sucking you into a black hole, So let's take ourselves out of it. Let's walk through guilt. Let's alchemize it. So how do you do that? The first thing is awareness. Bring awareness to the fact that you're naming, that you're feeling guilt, and name it. I feel guilty. I feel guilty about what? What do you feel guilty about? And allow yourself to really be with that guilt. And that's what most people find so hard, because the thought of it feels so huge and dark and sticky and shameful and embarrassing and overwhelming. A brilliant thing to do is get some pens or coloring pencils or chalks or pastels or paints or something, and get the guilt out of you. Put it on a page, give it an image, give it a visual. Maybe you draw it like a cartoon character. Maybe it's just splodges of color on the page. All right. If you don't have pens and colors, go out into nature. Use leaves and sticks and stones, whatever you have. Give yourself a visual representation of what that guilt looks like, so you can see it, so you can, be with it, so you can engage with it. All right. So the first thing is bring awareness to it and let yourself see it, or see it in a session. I take my clients through this, where we go into a meditation and a journey and we meet this guilt. So be with it, allow yourself, give yourself permission to be with it. And if you can't be with by yourself, find someone who can take you on the journey, who can take you in a safe way to meet it, so you're not scared. Okay. Awareness and be with it. Okay. First thing. Then there's two important elements to this. When there is guilt, there are these two things. There's a mistake. All right. There's a mistake. So in my case, what was the mistake? We could say that the mistake was I said yes and I should have said no. But that wasn't the mistake. The mistake was that I didn't listen to the voice of my being. I didn't listen to the voice of my soul. I overrode it. And why did I override that voice? I overrode that voice because this man who I spent 10 years of my life with was standing on top of the Eiffel Tower asking me to marry him. And I didn't want to be mean. I didn't want to upset him. I definitely didn't want to make him angry. Okay. And then people start to look at us. I didn't want to embarrass us by saying no. And we were together 10 years and we were in our late 20s. All our friends were getting married. That's what you did. So the mistake was I didn't listen to the voice of my soul. And I went along with the status quo. I went along for easiness sake. All right. So there's a mistake and there's a lesson. And here's, if you take nothing from this podcast today, remember this: guilt is an unlearned lesson. That's what's keeping you stuck. There's an unlearned lesson. So what was my lesson? To listen to the voice of my soul and to have the courage to speak the voice of my soul, even if everyone else around me has a different expectation, even if it's not popular, even if it's not what people want to hear, to speak the voice of my soul. And the truth, I really believe this: if I'd have spoke the voice of my soul that day, would my husband, my fiance in that moment, have been upset? 100%. But I can promise you, would have been nowhere near the amount of upset he had and the amount of heartbreak we all had to go through 3 years later when the marriage fell apart. So the lesson for me was speak the voice of my soul and have the courage to do something different. Okay? So what was the mistake and what's the lesson that you haven't learned? Okay? Next part. I want you in your mind's eye or in your heart to visualize the version of you who's frozen in time with that guilt, because that's what guilt does. It freezes us, absolutely freezes us. Okay. So in your mind's eye, find that version of you and know that this is not the first time you felt guilt, and it probably won't be the last time. There's multiple times in your life when you felt guilt, but the more you do this practice, the less hold it will have on you, to the point where, hopefully it will have no hold on you at all. But also honor that when you felt guilt the first time, you were tiny. You were tiny. And it was such a horrible, overwhelming feeling. You didn't know what to do with it. And you thought you were in the wrong. You thought you were bad. And every time you felt guilt since, it goes back to that child. All right. So just pick one moment when you felt guilty. Hold that version of you that's stuck in time, in that guilt, in your mind's eye. And I want you to imagine you have a blanket, and every fiber of that blanket is woven from love. So you have a love blanket. And now wrap that love blanket around that version of you that's feeling guilty, that's burdened by guilt, that's frozen in time. Wrap that love blanket around them and tell them, I forgive you and I forgive myself. I forgive you and I forgive myself. Because forgiveness is the alchemy that allows the energy to dissipate. Forgiveness is the alchemy that allows you to set yourself free from the guilt trap. So, if you are feeling guilty, bring awareness to it. Get it out of your body. Visualize it. Put it on paper. Make a nature mandala with it. Do something where you can see it. Okay? Where you can engage with it. Okay? Then, what was the mistake? And maybe the mistake was believing it was all your fault. Maybe the mistake was believing it was all your fault. I believed the dissolution of my marriage was all my fault. There was 2 people in that marriage, 2 people in that couple, but I took all the responsibility on myself. I didn't take on any responsibility that my husband has his own soul path, that I have mine. All right. So maybe the mistake is you're taking all the responsibility on yourself. Okay. And what's the lesson? What's the lesson that you never learned? Because if you can learn the lesson, you free up the energy. Hold yourself in love. Forgive yourself. And then choose to let it go and move on with your life. Because we will never have the life we want to live. We will never have the success we want. We will never have the realization of the fullness of our inner gold as long as we're carrying guilt, because it keeps us disconnected from, and it stops us from accessing and allowing to embody and express our inner gold. So as an act of love and kindness today, I invite you during this week, commit to meeting the guilt, alchemizing it, releasing it and letting go. And knowing that makes space for your gold. And if you need help to do that, get in touch. I'm here. I'm absolutely here. But for today, wrap yourself in that love blanket and see how you get on. Sending all my love. Sending all my love. Wishing you a beautiful, magical, gold-filled week. Aho.